Muller.
Here.
Mr. Homburg. Here. Ms. Fox.
Here.
Ms. Fallett.
Here.
Mr. Stein.
Here.
And Mr. Grice and Mr. Chalmers.
All right. Item 3 is approval of the minutes from September 8th, 2025. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
And then Susan has the second. All right. Any edits, corrections?
Do you hear the feedback?
Yeah, we got a little bit of feedback. We'll see if we can get that figured out here. All right. How about now? Sounds much better. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Any edits
Done
to
for the night?
Yeah. Any edits to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Order of business, I'd like to move 7C and 7D to proceed 7A and B. Do I need that as a motion then?
I think it's just a
A notation?
consensus. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any issue with that move? Seeing none, we will have consensus on that item. So, is there anybody that wishes to appear on an item that is not on the agenda? You're on the agenda, you're on the agenda.
I have the gentleman's for tonight.
Okay, perfect.
I see somebody online, but I'm not. Hey, Griffin, are you with a project?
Yes, I'm with JLA Architects.
Great, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So we will close the appearance section, and there is no unfinished business tonight. And so we'll start with item 7C, which is a public hearing on the request by the Strength Collective LLC for approval of a zoning permit for a new use at 6334 Cops Avenue. And this is case number 223-2025. And Doug, if you just want to give an overview for the public hearing and then allow our applicants to speak, and we'll move on to action.
Absolutely. So a new use here, proposed a new exercise gym use at 6334 Cops. The space was previously occupied by Direct Mail Works. This would be a 24/7 access facility with access only to members via key fob system. And this would be an independent personal trainer model that would staff the location with their respective clients. The commission has seen this user or this proposed use before earlier this year, and just looking to relocate elsewhere in Monona. I'm certainly happy to turn it over and let them know for this.
If there's any basic overview, usually I tell applicants, you don't have to go into great detail, but basically if you were in an elevator with someone and they were saying, what do you want to do?
Sure.
Tell us what you want to do.
Yep. So we're just a small independently owned gym with a strength emphasis. We cater to everyone from competitive strength athletes to people that want to get down on the ground and play with their grandkids. And we have a heavy emphasis on personal training with a small membership base.
All right, awesome. Is there anybody else here to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll go on to 7D, which is the consideration of action on the request by the Strength Collective LLC for the approval of a zoning permit for the new use at 6334 Cops Avenue, case number 223-2025. Doug.
Thank you. So the building here is zoned community design district. The comprehensive plan identifies 6334 Cops as commercial use in both the current and future land use maps. The land use description here is for land use for retail, service, commercial, and office uses. The proposal is for a build out of just over 3,000 square feet. And there would be just some small interior changes, remodels that would come as part of this, and of course the installation of the equipment itself. The applicant has indicated that the property has 35 stalls. There are a couple other tenants there, but given sort of the personal training nature of the use and the sort of dispersed timing of this as well that's expected throughout the day, given the 24/7 access, it's not expected that this would be an issue. There is also street parking up there on Cops Avenue should there be the need. So that's actually put as a possible condition should the commission choose to move forward with that. No other changes proposed to lighting, landscaping, or any of those elements. And generally, it appeared to be in good shape when there was a staff visit completed. So with that, the recommendation is approval of the zoning permit with the conditions as listed.
Patrick.
I have no issues with it whatsoever.
Rob?
I have no issues as well.
Susan?
I have no issues either, and my only appropriate use, my only question is not really, when I drove by it, it was not at night, and it looks like there's plenty of lighting. I'm just thinking since it's 24 hour, you feel like there's, yeah, that was the only thing. So otherwise, it looks good to me.
All right, Corinne?
No questions. It's good.
You hope to get up to 30 to 35 customers a day.
I think that's
Optimistic.
So I'm
optimistic,
just
but yeah.
curious, I mean, what kind of concentration that is, because
I would say like most people are gonna be earlier in the morning, like pre 9 to 5 and post. I would say if we would maybe have 15 in the morning, 15 at night, and the difference in during the day.
dispersed over how long the time period?
Most,
We're there for 45 minutes,
40.
an hour maximum.
So that would be like 3 different sessions at night? I'm just trying to get a sense of how many cars will be there at a time, because the lot's probably 2/3 full on any given day.
sure. We only have 3 active trainers in there right now, so at most there would be 3.
Is that 1, 2, 3?
The third is Martha. She's not here right now. Yeah. So I would say like it's rare that all 3 of us are training people at the same time. So it would be relatively staggered. I would say each of us, Martha would probably have closer to 3. We would have closer to like 1 on the same day, most likely.
I just asked because if you all had substantial crowds there, you probably wouldn't have enough parking.
Yeah, for sure. We've gone over that, and
Okay.
And we've
We're
discussed
pretty-
with the landlord that the other tenants aren't there outside of the standard 9 to 5 window, so
Okay.
before and after work, if we do have some like regular members, they would have plenty of parking,
Yeah.
full access to all that stuff.
All right, thanks. That's the question I had. I think it's great news.
All right. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve with recommendations from staff.
Second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations.
thank you.
All right, this moves us on to item 7A, which is a public hearing for the Compass property on a request for approval of an exterior revision to the existing precise implementation plan for the site located at approximately 4601 to 4613 Manoa Drive between Spring Haven and Dean Avenue. And this is for a mixed-use development. And this is case number 222-2025. And Doug, if you want to just basically kick us off, and then we can go to a general discussion from the applicant before we get to the real item.
Thank you. So the request here is for consideration of changes to the exterior materials for this. So the project in question this evening is 4601, 4613 Monona Drive, and that is the Bloom development, the 98-unit mixed-use apartment building, and specifically one of the items of exterior materials, one of the pieces of siding that's being brought forward. So it was deemed to be a substantive change from the approved plans, and so the applicant requested to have a consideration of the revision to the PIP for that specific.
All right. Anything further to add for the public hearing section? Okay. And is there anybody else here to speak during the public hearing session? Seeing none in the room, none online. Those are all connected.
They are.
Okay. We can close the public hearing section, move on to item 7B, which is a consideration of action for Compass Properties on the request for approval of an exterior revisions to the existing precise implementation plan for the site located at approximately 4601 to 4613 Monona Drive between Spring Haven and Dean. And this is for a mixed-use development, and this is case number 2025. Doug.
Thank you. So the property here, the Bloom project, there was a rezoning that was completed for this in order for it to follow the planned community development approach, which allowed for sort of the larger visioning of the site, both the GDP and the PIP, as this was rezoned to community design district and subsequently came through for a GDP PIP. The ordinance requirements state that requested changes to an approved PIP should follow the same process as the original approval of the document. So the notice was posted for this, the Class 1 notice. Mailings were also sent for this consideration of the PIP with any subsequent action penciled in for the City Council meetings late October, early November. The project is, of course, located on Monona Drive and subject to the 2010 Monona Drive the design guidelines, which do apply to the project. So the requested changes to the PIP, a couple items were flagged in the application materials that were shared with the commission. The primary concern is that of the sort of accent color that was previously approved as chestnut and has been replaced to honeysuckle. The intent there is, or the determination is that it was a substantive change given the design intent of the plans. The original approvals from the 2023 PIP showed a wood grain finish on the exterior materials sheet, which was prepared by TKWA. The architect has changed since the approvals. But the interpreted intent there was sort of accenting and contrasting the light finish of the Arctic white siding and the masonry and the darker masonry and cladding as well. So as far as timeline, the city staff did contact the site contractor to highlight the concerns in sort of mid-August of this year. And it was discussed if these changes had happened or had been approved by either city staff, city building inspection, the contracted staff. It was shared that the color variant was not available from the supplier, from the manufacturer, and the closest alternative was selected. A couple different options to remedy that situation were discussed, including potentially refinishing or painting or replacing with an alternative product. And of course, the other option of coming forward with a revision to the PIP. The development team did request the PIP revision. Certainly, city staff recognizes the impact this may have on the project timeline, as well as the warranty that's in place, and those elements were all outlined by the applicant in their materials. And then finally, sort of as far as this relates to the Monona Drive urban design guidelines, this calls for high quality materials. It also states that building colors may vary, with complementary color palettes that are encouraged. And then finally, notes that the use of sustainable building methods, materials, and products that minimize environmental impact, reduce energy consumption, and endure over time are encouraged. So really, city staff encourages the discussion amongst Plan Commission members this evening on the proposed revisions. Should an approval of the revisions be recommended, included in the staff report of findings of fact and a condition of approval as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else that applicant wants to add before we get to feedback?
I can just add, there are a couple of other revisions that we've made. Those are just updates, so there's not color changes. The original PIP didn't list a color or manufacturer. We just wanted to make sure that we were providing that information while we updated the drawings to you guys.
Okay, wonderful. Rob?
I can, yes.
I have a feeling there'll be people that want to point to things.
Looking at the revisions, I generally prefer the approved materials and color choices, understanding that things might not have been available. I have a question. If we wanted to pursue replacing those materials, would the existing materials be able to be repurposed, or is that landfill material at that point?
For our purposes, we would not be able to reuse them. Tyler Koenig with McGann Construction is our contractor. I believe he's on our Zoom call and may be able to address that as well.
Okay. Tyler, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So with the material being hardy and a cementitious finish, it's obviously nailed into the substrate. So when that stuff gets taken off, it's pretty generally, destroyed just from the nail holes and prying it off the building there. So I'm not sure that would be an option for that color and material.
Okay, thank you. It's kind of what I suspected. While I preferred the approved, I don't want to go to the extent of landfilling all that material personally. So I guess that's my only comment.
Susan?
I am really disappointed in the overall look, and a lot of it is also the Arctic white. There's so much of it, and it's so bright. And so I think this change, the chestnut, to me, the whole thing looked warmer. I went by and took pictures today again, and because I've been looking at it since it was going up. And looking back at the original proposal, even the Lake Huron color, all the colors looked a little warmer. And I just feel like it's a major intersection for Monona, but the Gordon Avenue side is even more egregious, really, just with that color. I really don't like the mustard. I just think it doesn't, the honeysuckle color looks mustardy to me. Looks way too yellow. It just doesn't blend. And then I think of adding the BMO blue, and I don't know, my preference would be to change it, but I'll wait and see what other people think. It's been bothering me ever since I saw it go up. I just thought, I just really am disappointed with that, because it's such a big, noticeable project, and yeah, it's just disappointing.
Corinne?
I feel similarly to both Rob and Susan. There's something about, it's the warmth that Susan was mentioning. You look at that and it's just like so bright. It's so bright. And I think, thinking about the mural that's going to go on the side too, it's like, it just doesn't, it seems kind of disjointed with that honeysuckle color and the lack of the wood grain. At the same time, I have the same concerns as Rob, that we would just be throwing something away. And if you think about the, urban design guidelines, we're not supposed, like, that's part of it, is we want it to be high quality materials, and we're, meeting standards and things like that. So I guess I can't speak to the quality of these materials, but do you have any information, maybe Tyler does, about the quality, if there's any quality difference between what was in the approved PIP versus what is currently on the building?
I can only say that based on the documents that we have from the original PIP that was approved, there actually was not a manufacturer listed. So I'm not, it was just listed as a fiber cement product. So
Okay.
we've provided a hardy product, which does have some sustainable qualities, is high quality, has a manufacturer warranty,
Okay.
made with some sustainable materials as well.
Yeah. I also
Only
wondered
be-
about that blue color, how the blue is gonna look, because it's
Yeah,
even
it's
more orangey on the building, so, yeah, sorry, Tyler.
No, all I was gonna say was that both of the colors are both hardy products. So it's not like, the material would have been different between the honeysuckle versus any other color of hardy. It's just the color is the only difference.
Okay. I think, I'll wait and hear what the other commissioners have to say as well. And we can talk about it a little bit more.
Chris?
First, I have a procedural question. We wouldn't be making an approval tonight, since it's a PIP. I would suspect it has to go back to city council. We can't make a change to the PIP. We just make a recommendation to the council, and they would have to approve the change.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Plan
So-
commission to council, yes.
So what we're discussing tonight is what the recommendation from plan commission might be to council. I agree, I'm disappointed in it. It was presented and told to us that it was supposed to look like wood grain siding up there. It was a hardy plank or the other one, I don't remember which one. It was supposed to look like wood grain siding, and I just kind of looked at it and didn't say much, but of all the complaints I've heard in the last 3, 4, 5 months, it's about that and how it looks. I'm not a fan of it, the way it turned out. Now, the biggest question we have to ask ourselves is, would we have approved this if it had been presented that way? And if we're convinced we would not have, we would have asked for a wood grain product, then that's your answer. If we all say, well, I probably would approve this, I don't like it as well as what was presented, but I probably would have approved that, then that's your answer. So I think that's the thing we need to wrestle with. I'm with Sue, I don't like the look at all. I think even the Arctic white, we should have known by saying Arctic, if you look at all the So I'm sorry, that's me. It was never like stark white, and I suppose it's hard to put a stark white on a piece of paper, but that's part of what gets you there. And I think this is a great lesson for us. In the past, on most projects, especially major projects, we've had boards with all the materials. And we've looked at them, we've approved those boards, we've approved those materials. I don't believe we had that on this project. So I think it's a good lesson for us as a commission to say, yeah, let's have material boards. We've got whatever this is, 30 million or whatever, it's a major project. Let's have material boards and look at what we're approving. Perhaps the glare of the Arctic White might have come up too, I don't know. At the end of the day, I want to hear what else. I guess we got 2 more to speak, but would you have approved this the way it's sitting right now?
I'm with everyone else. I'm not a fan of it. I think it clashes with the blue. It doesn't provide much depth at all. I'm not a fan.
I'd agree, and I mean, to your point regarding product boards, like even when we look at the image that's up on the screen right now, the siding at the top for the Arctic White, I'll just pick on that one, compared to the color splotch below it, they're drastically different.
Right.
And I think that's the difficulty of rendering in different programs and how it displays those colors. I get it. And then when something kind of shows up in real life, it sometimes is not even going to match any of those kind of images the best it can. I'd agree. It stands out, and not in a good way. As it relates to remedy, I mean, I think there are issues of like, hang on, you know, landfilling the product is not necessarily ideal, but I think that's up to an applicant of how they want to remedy. I think our task would be like, what would be some of those potential remedies that we could recommend? Painting is one option. I understand it's an embedded, I believe Hardy is embedded pigment, not surface pigment. Tyler, for Hardy, is that color in the product, or does it lay on top of the product?
I don't know for certain. I think it may be a painted product, but it's a factory finished product with their paint and, you know, their control standards. The only problem with, you know, if we explored painting it on site, then you don't have that manufacturer's warranty. You know, we'd have to probably go through some pretty extensive cleaning and prep of the products just to make sure that it would even accept new paint. I guess those would just be my concerns about doing something in the field.
Okay. And I'd only mentioned we have had some experience with some other developments where there's been some siding concerns with sometimes product or product install. And I think that's come back to be more challenging for developers in the long run of like, get it right the first time, or at least if you got to fix it right the first time, rather than having to redo that multiple times. So just something for us to consider. Susan?
Is there an option of replacing, I'm recognizing the landfill issue, which isn't ideal, but is it an option to order a different material if you can't get that chestnut color in Hardy, or a different supplier or something where you could get that material rather than painting it? I mean, is that an option, or is painting it the only option to change the color?
There may be other manufacturers, other products that we might be able to get close to. We would have to come up with some options for that. On page 13, which is listed as A205 PIP, we show the images that were from the original PIP and the proposed products. The image that I want to point out, I guess, is the image that shows the wood grain from the original PIP. I think that will probably be still difficult to achieve with a very similar product and color. So the honeysuckle that we're proposing is a cedar mill, so it has a wood grain. It's just not a prominent wood grain that you see in that image there.
Have you guys considered a non-hardy product like LP?
That would be one of the ones that we would consider, correct.
I know many of the products that appear more wood grain with that kind of multi-tone
Mhm.
to it tends to be more of the LP product rather than
Yeah.
hardy. Okay.
I-
Corey?
Just thinking about what we're talking about here, I mean, the Arctic white is so bright, but I don't know that we're talking about that as being the
No,
issue.
that was approved.
It's the
No.
honeysuckle. So, when I look at those two, I think it's just I don't know the right color terms, but it's, yeah, the chestnut is just so much, it's
So-
more of a natural
Right.
brown as opposed to that orange. So, you were trying to match them. Did they have a different product that you can recall that was had more of the gray, I guess, in the chestnut?
I believe we were matching the closest color and tone that we could find within that same product and comparable quality, manufacturer, that kind of thing.
Chris?
I say we send it to the council, they have to make the final approval anyhow. And we can tell them how we feel, that we're like, this really isn't what we like, we've heard some feedback. There's options to say it's okay, or paint it, or replace it. We think something should be done. And by then, perhaps the applicant could have a little more information, they could talk about, here's what we have, here's what we can do, here's what we can't do, some of those things, because it seems like we're just bringing things up that we don't have information for. I mean, is that bad to throw it in the lap of council? They have to make the final determination anyway.
No, and I would only add in, as one of the two that will have to be on the other side, that if there are options, we're gonna wanna see the product.
Okay.
So like a product board will be helpful because we wouldn't want a change to happen based on a rendering and then go, oh, great, we just did the same thing that we did previously.
Right.
I'd want that to be kind of part of that recommendation from here of if it's for council to approve whatever remedy, but this is not the remedy, that they actually use real products to make decisions on. Susan?
Yeah, I think it's significant enough that we should make that recommendation, that something be done about it, and whether paint would work and how well that holds up, I don't know, and does that create another problem? I mean, those are beyond my pay grade to but so I guess maybe beyond the council. I mean, that's where I guess having some proposals from you all about what would be the most, the most secure way to do it, so that it would have long lasting as well. But I do think it's significant. Granted, we can't do anything about the white, and it is much brighter than it looks, and I think that you're right, that's less than well learned, but I just think it'll be there for years now. And, I've heard nothing but complaints from community members as well. And, so for your own, I think your own satisfaction, you would want something that would be more welcomed by the community. And this is really not seeming from what I've heard. And I just think it would help a little bit to have a softer color. You look at other developments, and there are others around town, and I now, because of all this, I pay attention to them all. And some just blend more with the community, and this just stands out as almost, I'm not going to call it an eyesore. It looks a little better from Monona Drive, and I like the mural idea. I like some things about it. I like the fact that you did the balconies, but I just think it does have to be followed up on, so I would appreciate that. I don't know if we have to do a formal vote or recommendation, but
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to
we should do
have
that, yeah.
some type of motion.
Wait, was that me?
Yeah, because you're so good at writing laws.
I'll move that there's enough concern at Plan Commission that there's a large enough deviation from what was approved, that the council should review the options available, including repainting, replacement, or perhaps leaving it there if they feel like they don't think it's a large enough deviation, but Plan Commission feels there is a substantial deviation from what was approved. That's a pretty long motion to get that out.
He's a quick writer.
Make it sound
Yeah.
good.
Is there a second?
Seconds.
And I think this really gives you a chance to get some more information and come to the council. And no matter what we do, the council's gonna end up deciding whether or not they feel like something should be replaced, painted, or lesson learned. And that's really the three options, I
Yeah.
think.
I mean, we do want it to look the best it can, and I just think this would be helpful.
And I think it's hard with printers, because I believe if it looked like this color even, we probably wouldn't be talking about it.
Right.
It doesn't even look like the color that's the printer. put
Right.
out. So,
Yeah.
Or at least your printer put on your paper.
oh, you're right.
Yeah.
No, actually, you printed it for me, thank you.
Oh.
Appreciate
It
that.
also, it depends on the sunlight, because I was taking pictures today so that I could take it home and look at my computer and look how close it was. And when the sun hits it, that's when you really get that yellow impact. And I just think, yeah, and I am worried about it when the blue gets added for the BMO part, that it'll just look worse. And we don't want that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. I would only encourage that if you guys like look at potential options, bring products forward, because I think it will just help, it'll help you move forward quicker with whatever the solution is.
Yeah, thank you for your
Awesome.
feedback.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, and we will move on to 7E, which is a general discussion regarding the possible changes to Chapter 480 of the Monona Municipal Code of Ordinance regarding solar energy permitting. This is case number 224-2025. Will.
All righty. Thank you very much, Alder Holmquist, and good evening, Plan Commission. So the City of Monona here is really seeking guidance from the Plan Commission as to whether or not to implement a new ordinance regarding solar energy systems. This kind of has come out of a lot of work that both Thor Jepson and I have done over the last few months in conversation with the initial SolSmart kind of review of the city code as well. And this is to kind of set the stage, not at all red lines. This is not, going to be anything that we don't bring back. The plan is to bring back a red line version to you guys next month, or perhaps the month after, scheduling allowing to move forward from there. But the goal is to kind of pick a style and size of kind of formatting, along with a few other questions that we have to kind of get guidance from you guys as to next steps, as to whether or not this is something that Plan Commission even wants to address at all. So our kind of three options that we have here, and actually if you're flipping to the kind of table with the blue headline, if you want to cross out, option A is option B and option B is option A, just to fix a quick formatting error there.
Say that again.
What is that, where is that?
So option A
On which page?
is V, that's page,
A's, B, and
I've
B's,
got
A.
2 or
Oh,
kind of 42, depending on if you're looking online or at the memo.
okay.
Yeah, but option A is B and B is A, so apologies for that formatting error.
Those two.
Oh, switch those two.
Yep. And that will line it up with the appendix at the back, which has a kind of a longer version of the formatting. None of the language in the appendix is language that we're saying it would look like. That's just an example for how the formatting could look like. Basically, option A would define specific definitions for different types of solar systems, because there are community scale solar systems, accessory use, ground mount, and rooftop are kind of the three that are potential uses in Monona. And it would also look to describe in kind of a lengthier way the height, setback, visibility requirements that Plan Commission may have as well. This would cover most of the use cases that solar could have in Monona, and that's one of the reasons we're bringing this ahead, is kind of anticipating the future uses of solar and all these conditional cases that we may or may not want administratively approved or sent to Plan Commission. We kind of want to set a standard so both homeowners and potential larger installers have an idea of what solar should look like in Monona. And this also gives us the opportunity to use kind of the best practice language within the industry as well, which is something that hopefully will increase the use of solar in Monona, which, going back to the comp plan for the city, is a goal. So we're trying to kind of fit fit the comp plan and fill that need there. So moving on from option B to option A. That would kind of have smaller language within each section of each zoning district, basically say what is allowed and isn't allowed within each zoning district, so kind of splitting that language up a little more, and would limit the size of the zoning code. This option would pair well with the use table that we'll propose in a second. But it would not cover as many potential edge cases that could arise. It wouldn't be quite as clear from an administrative use point of view. And then finally, option C would kind of define what a solar energy system is, establish some shorter regulation use, and clarify the appropriate state statute language, which is, I think, maybe a good idea. And you can kind of pick and choose between these different options as well. There's things you want included or not included. And it this option would probably fit neatest within the existing code and be the easiest for applicants to determine kind of what systems are allowed. So those are the three options there. Doug, I don't know if there's any other notes you want to add before we move on to kind of the historic districts language as well and the other questions.
Yeah, I think just maybe a little background kind of from an administration side. We've been getting more requests in terms of both single-family installations as well as some of the commercial projects. And I think just having some guardrails in place would be helpful, both I think from enforcement of it, but also clarity for applicants as well. So I think kind of the origins of this come from that, and just some that we've seen and some that maybe we're expecting to see in the future as well. Thanks.
Yeah, Chris.
Didn't we go through all this not long ago and we decided we didn't want to do it? We looked at all this. I remember looking at it.
So if I
And
recall,
we talked about it. We said, some of the stuff was like, what's in here? We've got height restrictions. Oh, but if you got solar, you go another 10 feet above it. And it's like, it's like this is written by a solar manufacturer and not a municipality. So we went through this whole exercise, we talked about it, and then we decided, let's just leave it where it is for now.
was that the SolSmart meeting with the
Yeah.
audit? And
But there's the
discussion?
all the same solar
Yeah.
type of things that we went through. This seems like we're doing it all over again.
So my read from that meeting, and please correct me if I'm
Okay.
wrong, but the read from that was interest in some, but it was
Yeah.
defining some, in terms
Yeah.
of those. So that's why I'd say this is a pretty wide net, or can be,
Okay.
and it can be pretty minimal. So that's the reason this is not presented with a recommendation. This is truly a discussion, but
Okay.
the read coming from that meeting was sort of, my understanding was that the commission was looking to do something, but maybe to figure out where that was. So that, apologies if there was a
No,
misunderstanding on that.
that's fine. Do you have a lot of people? You said you have more people. You have a lot of people coming in looking for permits?
I would say there's a split. We have, for example, had a ground-mounted array that has come through recently in a single-family district. So
And you just used outbuilding? What did you use?
we used the accessory structures, used that definition, so 3 feet from side yard, separation requirements, but also, of course, it was subject to the 1,000 square feet coverage. The roof-mounted is a little less clear in terms of those definitions. We have an opinion from the city attorney that it does not contribute to the height requirements. So we have a few homes, for example, that are right on the 35 or very close, the height requirement for single family, so they can go above that. But were there to be, say, a nuisance use or a pitch or some sort of glare or something like that, we wouldn't have much guidance on that. And similar with commercial, we don't have, and most of these come in after the fact. Most recently, the pediatric dental, for example, so it was already approved, zoning permits gone through. And I think the roof was clearly prepared for solar, but they hadn't decided or wasn't clear. They came through and it's really more of an electrical and a building permit at that point. But my feedback from zoning is, what does the pitch look like? How noticeable is it to the architecture, and does it change and things? So, but it's generally more of a judgment call, I would say, than anything. And Viridian did the same at their use close to the belt line, sort of southwest corner of the city.
So you have ground mounted, because we talked about that, were really the most obvious places roof mounted, because you have view, right? And with all the trees and everything
We did. It was a larger, one of the sort of, the Midmore McKenna, one of the larger, sort of
Okay.
3/4,
All the
half acre.
super lots.
Yes.
All right, well, this background helps a lot more, because as I read it, it
So-
felt very eerily similar to that solar or whatever presentation we had.
And I can say that I met with the two and reviewed this packet, and one of the recommendations I had, because I wasn't here when you guys did the Soul Smart,
Okay,
so that previous discussion I wasn't a part of, but my feedback prior to this memo was really to look at, hang on, let's talk through some general ideas before you go start doing a lot of work, so that way this group can give you guidance of like, add the flavor, item C, or do we want like this whole robust thing that defines everything in products that we probably would never see in our city? And so it was like, okay, let's just have that discussion to give you a little bit of direction, and that way we can come back and then look at something for real.
and then if I could ask you one more question, Doug, have you reviewed what other municipalities have done?
Yes, and the options that are presented here, there's not a city name attributed, but these are, there's a county, the Dane County Model Ordinance, which again was attached as part of those materials previously, and then these are 2 Dane County communities as well. So looking at peer communities, what they're doing, and sort of best practices, and a good example, sort of in the with peer communities right now is there's a discussion of, well, what about small scale wind energy? And there's different things, each may seem a little unlikely, but until it comes in, or, and I can say there is a residential installation of a small scale wind, wind energy that's coming through in one of the Dane County communities right now. So I think it's a little bit, it's trying to get ahead of some of these things to make sure we have standards, however specific or broad we would like them to be.
Okay, thank you.
I don't do, sorry, I don't do a lot of work with residential solar, but I do a lot of utility and community scale solar work. And so I review a lot of solar ordinances, and it's very, very, very common to come across small scale solar ordinances, whether that's a township ordinance or a municipal ordinance or a county ordinance. So it's something that I see all the time. So, other
And Rob,
communities are
based on
certainly-
that, what would your recommendation be? C being a light touch,
A, probably.
A being the middle,
Mhm.
and B is the deep?
Yeah, that's a rough way to put it.
A, I believe.
Mhm.
The middle
The
ground.
middle option, yeah.
Yeah.
Susan?
Oh, sorry.
All right. Go ahead.
One final question. One thing that I come across as well is battery storage, which is becoming more and more of a bigger topic in community, larger scale, but something to look into. I don't know about residential, if there's zoning ordinances regarding battery storage as well. But worth some investigation.
I think when I kind of looked through these, I thought, well, B does give you a lot more information, but at the same time, just someone wanting to put it in, it might look overwhelming, and it might be easier to do something. I think the trick is to, I think there should be something, but I think it should be something that doesn't look so ominous to the resident in particular, but that gives staff enough guidance, or it gives you enough guidance and gives us enough guidance if it ends up coming to us, that we have grounds for approving or not approving. I mean, there should be some standards defined somehow, I think. And I don't know if A would allow for that too, and something not quite so detailed as option B, but if that makes any sense.
Cool.
I think it just seems like there's been, the technology changes quickly. There's been a lot of technology change just in the last 5 years. So I'm hesitant to say the B, I guess, option B. I think that's too much, because that would just, to me, that seems like we would just be having to do some ordinance revisions shortly after, like in 2 years or 3 years. I mean, maybe that's not the case, but I would be concerned about that. I think having you think about the challenges that you're facing as people are coming to you to guide that ordinance revision is probably the best at this point. You know, what are the questions that you are having to ask, or what is unclear? And maybe that is what we need to be thinking about. You know, maybe option C is fine, just because there is a lot of solar going on right now. People are doing similar things. It seems like they're doing similar things. I didn't know that there was a ground array. But speaking of the ground array, I don't know why we wouldn't consider that to be impervious. So I guess that's something that I have a question about, because it is being mounted on the ground.
I would say it would be, and if I said, so it would count towards the 1,000 square feet, which is kind of our total cumulative accessory structures we allow in single family. But if I said that, I apologize, but the impervious would be, we have standards. Larger lots would be 65% of the lot, so at least 35 needs to be green space effectively.
Okay.
But on the lot that it was installed, they would come nowhere near that standard. So
Okay.
certainly from my perspective, that would be impervious, because it would cause runoff. It would, you know,
Right.
unless designed in a particular way, it is, you know, it's ground cover effectively.
Right.
It does not allow for water to filter through.
And when I read the question that you had about wind, okay, so solar, I think, yes, having something that would be written in a way to address the questions and the needs that we as a community have would be my recommendation. But when it comes to wind, that seems less likely. I mean, I'm wondering if it was like Dodgeville or something that had someone putting in a wind. Maybe there's a spot in Monona that I'm not thinking of that would be on the lake,
I was
suppose,
thinking
on
there
the
was a
lake.
lot of wind
There's
on the lake.
cylindrical wind turbines that are not the big arms.
Right.
Yeah.
They're just
That's what I was picturing. It must be a smaller unit.
But like in my
It's just a
yard, you know, that's, I'm not
cylindrical
gonna
that
catch the wind.
stands tall and
It's a
then
huge
spins within that
difference.
cylinder.
Okay, well,
That'd be worth.
I don't get a lot of wind.
Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know about the wind. That's it.
All right, Chris?
Well, I think Rob sees a lot more of this than I do, so I'm gonna defer to him for a lot of it. If he thinks the middle one's the best, then I'd say that we should base it off of that. I would disagree with what's in here about being 10 foot higher than our height restrictions if you're gonna do it, because I think that's way too much. We talked about that with the solar thing. I agree with Corinne, even though you can plant nice cover below the solar panels, they still cause concentrated runoff, right? The water isn't going down there, it's going past it. So I know some communities say if you put the right type of plantings there with the deep roots, but it's no different than a series of small roofs where you're creating runoff. So my biggest question, we talk about all this, I assume this would still be something, if they didn't fit within the standard, then they could come to Plan Commission and ask for an exception?
Correct.
That should be written into the code so that one of these comes up that we don't anticipate. We don't have to put down every possible scenario. If there's a really out of bounds scenario that comes up sometime, there should be a vehicle there that, yeah, they can come and ask for a hardship, not a hardship, just ask for a variance from Planning Commission. Instead of trying to write every possible thing into a code.
I think that's better, yeah.
That's my intention, certainly, the sort of the conditional use and, you know, the permitted uses, let's say small scale, single family, that kind of thing, but.
Permitted with staff review.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. With clearly defined parameters. And I will say to Chair Holmquist's point as well about the work that went into this, the materials you see in the appendix, they were pulled straight from other ordinances. So the 10 feet, that stood out to me as well.
Kind of felt like it.
Yeah.
Well, but that stood out to
That was
me
on
as well.
purpose.
And
I
that
said,
was
don't do a
intentional.
bunch of work, let's
Yes.
talk about it first.
Yeah.
And that stood out to me. It was very intentional that it sort of be here's what others are doing, not what we're suggesting, but for discussion, because absolutely that one stood out. But I think some guardrails, but absolutely, let's say one of these commercials came in with a greater pitch, for example, and it was impactful. We'd then weigh up, at the commission level, would weigh that up as part of the design and the overall impact, so absolutely.
One other question on one of these, I don't know where you're going with it, but it said if you wanted to have a carport with solar, then you could do it. But now, that feels like we're now allowing 2 accessory buildings on a property. And how does that affect the neighborhood? I mean, so they could have a accessory building for 1,000 square feet, and then also, because it sounded like the carport would just be allowed. So if you built a carport with solar on top, it's allowed no matter what. So it seems to me we'd have a little conflict there for some of the things we allow and don't allow on properties.
I would certainly work with staff just to make sure that the standards align with our code as well. And so the 1,000, my hunch would be that's included with the carport. So you want a detached garage, shed, right now you're allowed that, and it would be the same as here.
The reason I say that, if there's a worthy case, you've got a super lot and you're exceeding it, that might be an exception that you come here and get. But when you write it into the code, it's by right. So we gotta make sure that we don't conflict with some of our other ordinances and the enjoyment of the neighbors when we say this is your right to do it.
Absolutely.
And Doug, would that come here, or does it go to ZBA?
So the zoning potentially would be a ZBA, depending which section this lands in. So building would be more of a special exception, so if it's in 175, but if it's 480, it would be ZBA.
If we're writing the ordinance, can't we say where it goes? And the only reason I say that, maybe I'm off kilter, but I think it's a lot easier to come in for a meeting here than ZBA. ZBA, you have to prove a hardship.
Yeah.
Here we can grant a variance. There's a different level of hardship, of what you have to show and prove. And if we can come here, it's easier for an applicant to go outside of what we write for, you have this entitled by right.
My understanding.
That's my preference as well, because I chair ZBA.
Well, you understand, I mean, you
Yeah.
have to demonstrate a
Yeah,
hardship.
which is extremely difficult, so if whatever we do, if we can have the exceptions come here, that would be ideal.
My understanding is it would be what permit is being requested. So zoning permit, of course, comes here. So I think it would be the mechanism by which they
I
request it.
think creative staff can write it so it comes here.
Okay, all right, so we'll find a way. Patrick?
Leading along with Rob, basically, I'm sorry, keep getting confused by A and B and B and A. Yes, B.
The middle.
A little bit of A, a little
The
bit of
middle,
B.
the middle.
The middle option.
Okay, but is that,
A, right?
Wait,
A is
no,
what- well,
A is the middle, right?
Correct.
A
Yes.
on the chart
Yes.
A on the chart, right.
is
Here.
So
the
A.
middle.
well, Rob, are you suggesting the lengthy one, or the middle
No,
of
you
the
didn't mean
road?
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Middle of the
The
road.
option
Right,
four
middle of the
really
road.
is B.
Whichever one is the middle road.
Well, it depends on which page you're talking about,
I can't
because they're labeled correctly.
Does it make sense to you which one?
Yes, it
The
does.
appendix
Yeah.
is correct.
Right. So, yeah,
As long as you guys know which one we're talking about, middle of the road.
right.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other information that's anybody wants to share, or any questions that staff have for us?
So I think the two potential things that we need to add as well, separate from this, are the potential use table. We wanted to see whether or not spelling out not just, this conditional or unconditional permitting in language, however we do that, but also putting in a use table. And again, this is just a sample one that we've got up here, just for residents and for applicants to have kind of a visual view of what district they're in and what's approved. And then a recommendation that was kind of a through line through a lot of the examples we looked at was dealing with historic districts, because those are such a special use case. And so this is, again, not quite red lines, but some sample language that we would put into 48020K, just including installation of any solar energy systems, just to cover the historic district's use language. So whether or not Plan Commission thought the use table was appropriate and the historic district's language was appropriate.
Any feedback on that?
But doesn't, like landmarks, like if, landmarks would have to
That's what that suggestion is.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so landmarks would be covered.
Okay.
Yep.
48020 would be under the Landmarks Commission.
Okay.
Yes, that
Mhm.
review of that.
I'm good with that. Rob? Susan?
Yep, I think that makes sense.
Corinne?
Yes,
The table and the historic district.
oh, yes, and I have another question.
Okay, we'll come back to it in a second. All right, everything's good on those pieces. And Corinne, your other question.
What about the wind? Is that something you are looking to incorporate in as part of this? Or is that something that we could think about in the future if it becomes an issue?
I think if we had sample wind language, what we were considering is just putting it as a conditional use, kind of explicitly across the board. So if you were to look at that use table, for example, and put in another kind of row there for winds, it would be Cs across the board. So any potential wind use would come in front of Plan Commission.
And I think I might suggest as well, to Rob's point, could be wind, it could be battery storage, so I think it's sort of other renewable energy. Some, to avoid future modifications to the ordinance if we didn't need to, or if we see an influx of one type, for example, but I think suggesting other renewable energy product or something like that. Conditional comes back here for review anyway, but so as not to deter, people at least know the path, but it's coming here
Okay.
for review. I think I'd still suggest that's more of an edge use case than it is solar's the most frequent of these that we see. So.
Chris?
And when you're considering it, I would just say, I know it's windy on the lake, but I also know lake owners are very, very possessive of their views. That's why no accessory buildings are allowed on the lake side other than a boathouse. So although it might be a great place to put it,
Right.
I think it'd be a really tough sell just because of people's views.
Well, that's why if it's there, it should for sure be conditional or, I mean, yeah, you'd have to
But-
review
But
it.
even within it.
I don't know if you could put it on the
Would
side.
we ever allow it on the lake side of a home? I just don't.
I don't know what it
I
would
don't
look
see
like.
why- I don't
Maybe.
think it would.
Maybe,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say no.
I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know what it looks like either. That's why, but I was thinking, being on the side of the house, there might be room, I don't know. It's possible. I just think, because as you said, the technology is changing so quickly, there should be something in there that but that for sure should be conditional.
All right, sounds like you guys have good guidance.
I believe so.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, and
There you go.
we can go on to reports from staff and commission members. And Doug, you can do staff 1 through 5.
Thank you. A couple updates for the commission. The city council at the last meeting approved the development agreement for River Place for phase 1, the western building there, the 125 units, and both that is and the Topgolf over on West Broadway are both now under construction. So permits were issued for those, and they're both moving along pretty well. And I believe you should have all received invites for the groundbreaking as well for Topgolf, which is later this week. So everybody is welcome to that, and they were keen to invite the commission. They knew the input and impact.
Is that an email?
Yes.
Yeah, it's an email.
What day and time is it?
It's
I will
Thursday.
follow
I think
up.
it's Thursday at
10:30.
10:30, yeah.
Yeah. I can follow up to the commission as
Okay.
well.
All right.
And then, as far as potential upcoming plan commission items, we are expecting a pre-hearing, just a preliminary discussion on the potential phase 2 in the West Broadway Topgolf area. So what the sort of remaining parcel to the north of Topgolf could look like. So again, very high level, but the applicant is seeking some sort of conceptual feedback from the commission about uses and potential massing and layout and things like that. So fair to say a mixture of uses are proposed down there. And again, it's the Galway company, Steve Doran, who would be bringing that forward. So they'll be coming through for sort of that initial discussion. Then we did also receive sort of pre-hearing materials for a possible phase 3 with the North Point East Broadway project as well. So the southern parcel, the end of the private drive down there as well. So both would be first discussions, but lots of exciting projects going forward there. And that would be the November 10th meeting we would be targeting for that.
Great.
I think I jumped the gun.
No, that's all right. We'll
That's-
move on to the next
That
item,
might
which
update.
is
Okay.
request for staff.
I didn't know West Marine closed. When did that happen?
I think it's recent.
In the middle of the night.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it was just like, I drove by, the sign's gone,
Mhm.
That was fairly quick. It was like
Okay.
2-3 weeks ago.
because that's an opportunity.
Yes, and I've had a couple phone calls already about it. I think
Okay.
it's a good visibility,
Yeah.
freestanding.
Right. Big.
It's a good site with good parking and things. So certainly there's already been interest from the community on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris?
November 10th, Monday Night Football, Packers versus Eagles. Traditionally, we have not scheduled a plan commission meeting on a Packers Monday Night Football
That's
game.
true.
That's a fairly big game.
That is
So we've
true.
either changed the date or changed the time.
I will work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long one if it's got two
Yeah.
pre-hearing.
Yeah,
Could it
right.
be
So a better
Tuesday?
date, a different date would be better.
I will send a poll to understand availability. Just from noticing requirements, we can't move it too far forward, but somewhere in that area.
We could move it forward in time.
Time or date. Forward in time or potentially in that week as well. But yes, I can certainly coordinate that. I had checked, I thought I had gotten that far, Chris, but I remembered that point was well
Packers,
made.
Eagles, really? You missed it?
I follow the other type of football, so. I'm guilty on that one, but
Fair enough.
I'll send that poll and we'll take a look.
And I checked my phone, if it's right, 10:30 on Thursday is when the groundbreaking was.
Thank you very much. Yes.
As of right now, I don't have anything on that Tuesday for other committees.
Me either.
Okay, so that's one possibility. Earlier in the night would be,
What time is, what time is the
I work
game?
from home on
Yes.
Mondays, so it wouldn't be hard for me, but I don't
okay.
know.
Well, we don't need to settle it now, but just so you got some options. Maybe
Yes.
plan some options earlier.
You
and
could do
then
earlier Monday,
Tuesday.
too.
Thank you.
As long as there's a tailgate that happens
Right.
during the commission meeting.
Tuesday's men's basketball versus Ball State, but I'd gladly
I
miss
was
that to
gonna
be
say-
able to see a Packer versus
Okay.
Eagles.
All right, and
Motion to adjourn.
there you go. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, meeting has adjourned.
All right. Good call, Chris, thank you.
Quick.
I had noticed there was a game, I didn't know it was that
But,
game.
Yeah, we're all.
Yeah.